Hey Dratnos, have you downloaded the Duolingo Zereth Mortis edition? You're definitely going to need it come patch 9.2.
Yeah, I have. I bet you're really excited too to finally become fluent in a language.
In a language, I'm still working
Yeah.
on English, man. We're really struggling out here. Yeah, so basically, there was a lot of 9.2 announcement stuff that came out on Thursday, November 11th. And if you want a lot of the stuff, you can go and check the Wowhead front page. There's going to be just a ton of articles. We're going to be covering a lot of them today. Let's just get that off the bat first and foremost. 9.2, the patch launch date has not been announced, but there was a lot of storyline stuff that has been covered a little bit. The raid has been announced. There was some stuff about tier sets, and then it's also going to be the final patch of Shadowlands.
Yeah, the video there is a good watch as well for anybody that wants to see the zone and everything. Um, it's pretty light on content though. There was kind of this release of content through interviews over the next couple hours after this video was actually released. So that's the good news is it's all basically collected at Wowhead through those various articles.
Yeah.
That's the place to go. We will cover some, but not all of the biggest hits from that list.
Yeah, and the first and foremost thing, patch 9.2 is the final major story patch of Shadowlands. So there was a lot of speculation that 9.2 is going to be the final patch and that 9.3 is going to potentially be scrapped, and that's looking more and more correct. Well, actually, it's almost confirmed at this point now.
It's
that there
it's
won't be
everything short of being officially confirmed, right? They use a lot of language about finality, but they didn't come out and say this is the last major patch. Like this is they didn't say it in 100% explicit terms, right? I think they left wiggle room for like a 925, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they didn't like say they didn't give us full information, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
patch 9.3 could still be forthcoming potentially, but I would bet almost all my money against that.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely just there is room, I guess, technically for 9.3, but we're definitely at a certain point where I would almost say that Blizzard is just better off sending a new expansion and
Yeah,
trying.
I think that's the reason that they would need to leave it open for a 9.3 is like if they aren't able to get the new expansion ship shape by when it would normally come out, which is like August 2022 would be the kind of standard expansion launch. Of course, Shadowlands was delayed a little bit past that August time
Yep.
frame, but
August to
uh,
September is typically the
yes,
time frame.
somewhere in that range. So if we're that kind of gives us some information about probably when 9.2 will be, because of course they're going to have to put a 10.0 beta up several months before they actually release 10.0 as well, and we'll still have to learn about all that as well. So I don't know. I mean, there's on the one hand, Shadowlands being cut short in sort of a wad similar way. On the other hand, there's still actually not much time left before 10.0 really needs to get into that dev cycle fully.
Speculatively, I would say that there's a high chance that that 9.2 doesn't even come out in January. I think that
Yeah,
we would be. I think that we would already be seeing PTR stuff. I
right.
mean, even though 9.15 just came out this week, we would already be seeing PTR stuff if 9.2 is scheduled to launch in January, which makes me think that it's probably more likely than not going to be fairly early February, which at that point, an August expansion release would be pretty fast. So I would suspect that it would be potentially like a September release. But at the same time, why Blizzard as a company would be better off just dropping a new expansion as opposed to making a 9.3 at some point.
Right. I mean, the main thing is that like 9.3 would be easier to make than a new expansion, right? So like
True.
if they need to audible to 9.3 and then 10.0 isn't until 2023, that's an option they've still left themselves. Although I think that's something they've really heavily indicated they're not trying to do.
All right. So, yes, with that said, one of the major things that was discussed was tier sets coming back in 9.2. And basically, they talked about how you're going to have distinct class armor sets via PvP, raids, or Mythic Plus. So you're going to be able to get these tier set bonuses from most of the content types that you would like to do. And each set comes with a powerful 2-piece and 4-piece. Those bonuses have not been yet released. I'm sure that they will be released at some point. Here is just a quick look at what these tier sets are, at least visually, and some of them are home runs, and some of them less so.
Yeah, I gotta say the aesthetic. I like what they're doing with the fact that it's kind of a unified aesthetic across the classes, right? Last time we had class tier sets, they were all pretty different, and now they're sort of going on what they've done the last 4 years, where it's a unified aesthetic for the raid. But this time, instead of 4 armor sets, there's going to be 12 class sets. But I gotta say that this particular aesthetic is not going to be one that I will probably transmog to all that often.
Ever.
There's a couple that I think I could get behind under the right circumstances. That far left one, that's Shaman, right?
Yeah, that's Shaman.
Pretty good.
I like the hat. The hat on the Shaman looks really cool.
The Rogue is kind of a cool one too, potentially. What is this Mage that you were looking at there? Yeah, and then here we have Hunter far left.
The best
Warrior,
one.
actually, that Warrior second from the left could be good on the right frame. I'm feeling like maybe on Tauren, this will look like beefy, chonky.
Okay, so if you have a thick frame, maybe it's a little bit better.
I'm not sure. Right. Yeah, I'll have to experiment.
Anyways, so aesthetic aside, I think that one of the biggest things was the discussion points talking about like how like the acquisition process just of the tier sets. So for a lot of it, you're going to have to be able to upgrade your Forge of Creation, and then which is basically it's like the zone Orthia rep. Yeah, it's zone renown.
It's basically renown. It looks like we assume that the currency to upgrade it is weekly time gated in a way similar to renown, although we don't know that for sure. And it looks like there are some choices in terms of what you want to upgrade first, rather than renown, where you got everything along a straight and linear path. But yeah, basically you'll gain the ability to make the tier sets from something other than raid eventually, right? Like after you've gotten this thing upgraded for a bit. So you can, from the first week of the raid, you can start getting tier set drops from the bosses, and then eventually you'll be able to take M+ and PvP gear and imbue them with tier set power.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not 100% confirmed, but that was heavily indicated in one of there were a lot of different written interviews that came out, and Wowhead did a good job of putting them all together. But like one of them, like speculated that you were going to be able to just imbue random Mythic Plus pieces with these tier set powers if you are creating them via the Forge. And I think that that's actually very interesting, and it allows the players a unique way to not have to recraft legendaries if they otherwise would need to, because now they're able to put their tier set bonuses potentially on other slots, such as like bracers or something, where they're not going to have a legendary.
Yeah, speaking of legendaries, we're going to be wearing 2 of them this coming patch, but one of them will be our Covenant legendary, and it is also going to take some upgrading of the Forge of Creation before we unlock this power.
But Torghast is gone.
Yep, that's true. You don't need to go to Torghast anymore. Now it's just progressing Zareth Mortis that lets us get the 275 and 289, 288, whatever numbers they go with for them.
I think that it's really interesting to see like the fact that they chose Covenant +1, and so that means that some powers are innately going to just be more synergistic with the spec plus other legendary options than others. But at the same time, I do think that that's cool that they are utilizing that in a way to interact with your kit a little bit more, as opposed to just letting you go hog wild with double legendary.
Now, we don't know the time scale when you'll unlock this ability, so it may be that for a lot of players, it may be the first 2 or 3 months that you're still not able to do this, in which case it won't actually impact like Race the World first, anything like that, any of that balance. But then as soon as this becomes available, it will represent, I think, a pretty sizable paradigm shift in terms of how the different covenants operate. And I think people have I think there are some useful mental tools to kind of prepare for this, which is I don't think you should think about it as 2 legendaries. I think whenever this becomes available, you should just think about it as the Covenant abilities have all changed, right? They've all just had the legendary baked in, and the Covenant legendaries no longer exist, right? And it's just you're wearing 1 legendary, but all of the Covenant abilities have changed to be whatever their legendary effect is, right?
Yeah,
it's
and
like
that
Night Fae Druid is now a 1-minute cooldown, right? That's what Night Fae Druid is. As soon as we get the ability to wear this Covenant legendary plus an extra one.
Exactly, and people also have this notion that no balance is going to change, so they're just like saying
Right.
things like, "Oh, Venthyr Holy Paladin, Venthyr Balance Druid." There's like a couple of specs that are definitely on the radar that will maybe receive
Yeah.
nerfs. I mean, probably received at least some tuning because of the interactions between their kit
Oh,
plus their
hopefully.
Covenant Legendary, plus plus their base legendaries. But at the same time, it definitely opens you up to playing a lot more flexible options just as a whole.
I have it on good authority that Ashen Hallow is going to get nerfed by 5%, and the problem's going to be solved again.
Who's the authority?
I don't know. That's what they did the last patch.
Oh, okay. But at the same time, this is how. So how does this change gearing? How does the tier sets and like the double legendary realistically change gearing? Is it just one of those things that you're? So obviously, there's going to be some tier tokens from raid.
I don't think that's obvious. They might, it might just drop the actual item for like personal loot, drop you tier shoulders. Like if personal loot drops you like domination socket shoulders.
I don't like that. Okay, I was hope. Oh man, I was under the impression that it was gonna be
there's a
token.
chance they'll do it. They'll tokenize it, but they haven't said anything about how that will work.
Okay, so what would you expect? Would you expect it to be a token, or would you expect it to be just Sanctum of Domination-esque?
Yeah, I think the most likely thing right now would be the just items dropping that you can equip and that have that have set bonuses. Maybe even the way that domination socketed pieces worked, where there's like 2 different shoulders with different stats that activate the tier set. But we really don't know, right? There's a lot of different ways that they could do it. I would be hopeful for. I mean, ideally, I think the coolest thing would just be like a item that let you add a set bonus to any item, like just one of the bonus drops, right?
Yeah.
Could be something that will function the same way that the Forge of Eternity eventually would, right? Where you'll be able to just add set class bonus to something. But I think that's a lot of copium to assume it'll work that way. I think the most likely thing is an item will drop that says, 2 set, 4 set on it.
Yeah, I do think that if it dropped like that, where it would just let you apply it, it would be really cool, and it would also enable you to be able to like have more agency over what items you're potentially taking in like the Great Vault, right? Because one of the major complaints about the Shards of Domination was that it was kind of invalidating your vault options, and this is going to probably also make your vault options just a little bit less valuable. At the same time, though, the vault is a lot better than all of the other systems that they have had previously in terms of like weekly chores equals loot reward.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly what the tier set numbers are. We know it's 2-piece, 4-piece, but we don't know, are there 5 slots you can have your tier set in? Are there 6? Are there 8? Right? And the closer that number is to 4, the more rigid the system is, right? And the more it's going to interfere with your Great Vault picks. On the other hand, if we're able to just imbue items that we get out of our Great Vault with class set powers, then that effect no longer exists, right? Because you'll still just take the BIS item and make it a tier piece, which would be phenomenal.
So aside from imbuing items, is there any other way that Blizzard could potentially like avoid having players have to recraft their legendaries again and avoid that drama? Or is it just put the tier bonuses on the previous Shards of Domination pieces, or like and just only have 5? Or is there like a better solution realistically to not have people need to recraft legendaries?
I mean, recrafting legendaries as a phenomenon is just a lot less damaging now that you can scrap them and get everything back.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's something they really need to like avoid like the plague. But yeah, I mean, they could try and anticipate it and do one of those things. I think another thing they need to think about is making sure that it's not BIS to wear 259 Sylvanas shoulders with Shard of D's in them for the rest of the expansion, which it will be if they're not careful with how that works.
Yeah, the Shards of Domination needs to be disabled after this patch.
Right.
Basically.
Even if they make the tier set in the same slots, you'll just wear 4 tier pieces and like 1 shard piece, and you'll put Shard of D's or whatever in there, and that will be the best option for you for the remainder of the patch. Or maybe even 2-piece and the 3 damaging shards.
Yeah, so definitely make sure that those get disabled if anybody from Blizzard is watching for next patch, because nobody really wants to play like that. That's not very fun. So yeah, I think that it's interesting how this is going to change just like the gearing meta, because this feels like, so while Shards of Domination, very rigid, very strict, tier bonuses have that same complaint, and a lot of Mythic clusters and PvPers have talked about how they would have to go in the raid. It feels like a lot of these things are being addressed just outright before it happens. the rigidity of the pieces acquired specifically from raid is still yet to be determined. But at the same time, it was one of those things that in the interviews, Blizzard effectively said raiding will still be king. There's going to be something for PvPers in Mythic Plus eventually, which, it's nice.
Yeah, I think that depending on how they structure the time, right? If it's a case of like 1 month into the patch, you can have your tier set as a raider and a PvPer and an M pluser. I think that's pretty good. I think if it's like, oh, it takes 2 months if you don't set foot in the raid, and then you'll have your 4-piece, I think that's also probably fine. If it's a case of like, after 3 months of the patch, you can start building your set bonuses, and it takes 2 months to build each piece, right? And you've got your 4-piece by 2024. Then the system wouldn't actually be doing all that much good. So it is important they calibrate it well, but assuming they do, yeah, I think this is a fantastic compromise on the tier sets that should get everybody most of what they want.
Also, IMO, I think there should be some alt catch-up built into this kind of thing to not have you be just forever behind just right off the gate. Because I feel like this is something, especially with how the Forge works, especially with, there's going to be some currency probably to craft the legendaries. There's going to be some like daily grind that you're going to have to do to probably make these. Realistically, that's how Blizzard operates. Making sure that your alts aren't 8 weeks behind straight out of the gate, and you have to phone it in 8 weeks in advance if you want to play an alt. That should probably be addressed.
Right,
before.
That was a problem in 9.1 with Soul Cinders, and in 9.0 with Soul Ash, right? Was you would create your alt and you'd be scuffed on a lot of systems for just like a month's worth of time gated features.
Corruption resistance 12 weeks behind perma.
That was really bad, right before they fixed it in July. It was like the longest time gate that the game had for alts.
Yeah. All right, so talk about the raid a little bit more. So we talked about tier sets. We talked about how that's going to change in the meta. Something that's also going to be a little bit different is the culture of the first one's raid and how the bosses are time gated in a way.
In a way, I mean, I think that this is it's not that different from normal. So normally we'd have a week of no raid, and then we'd have heroic and normal week, and then we'd have mythic week where the LFR also starts to open up then as well. This system is the same, except during heroic week, during normal and heroic week, the last 3 bosses aren't available. And then during mythic week, they are on all 3 difficulties, right? Obviously not an LFR for a month or 2, but for the other 3 difficulties, it is basically like normal on mythic week. The only difference is that heroic week where the 3 bosses after Anduin, who's the 8th out of 11 bosses, are disabled.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be interesting. It's also going to be cool to see whether or not they elect to test the 9th, 10th, and 11th bosses even on heroic. So during that first heroic week, obviously they're going to be disabled, but are they going to test them on heroic? Are they going to test them on mythic? And then also, how is it going to affect the race to world first? Because this is going to be these guilds. Are they going to spend time going and reprogressing like these heroic bosses to try to get loot immediately as mythic opens? Is that going to be something they do later down the line? Are they going to completely not do those bosses on heroic and then just progress them the first time through on mythic?
No shot.
Really?
Could you imagine just trying to do Mythic Sanctum without having killed heroic KT and Sylph on Mythic Week? Like that gear is so good.
But the time is also valuable, right? I mean, they're going to have to go do it eventually.
They'll do it during that week. They'll probably wait and start with Mythic Prog straight away, and then piggyback off of other people's, who just went to heroic and
steal their strats,
yoink the strat, right, and do that when like 5 mythic bosses are dead or something. But there is an 100% chance they'll be killing those. The first week.
I think available. That this. Okay, so just as a player, I feel like this is really cool with how they're time gating these bosses where you're not able to get all of heroic the first week, and then mythic opens up with the remainder of heroic. That kind of adds a little bit of a more interesting dichotomy of like how the raid is structured. And I really wonder is Anduin going to be like last boss heroic level difficulty hard? Because that's kind of how it feels. And we were pitched in the past that King Rostakon was going to be end boss difficulty hard, and then we ended up with King Rostakon, who is not. But with how Anduin is being presented, where he is the last boss that you're able to face on heroic week, it kind of seems like he's either going to be a complex fight or a very difficult one. But that may just be people overhyping it a bit.
Dude, I hope we come out of this expansion and we have to kill Anduin. I hope that in order, like, we learn how to defeat domination magic, but it's too late and we have to kill him. And then Sylvanas, lives the expansion, but Anduin doesn't. I feel like that would be really good for all the lore fans. I think they would really like that. You have no understanding of the lore whatsoever, but that would really annoy them.
Your shitpost just went straight over my head.
They would hate that so much.
I can tell you're trash talking, but I don't know what it means. I will be honest. All right. I think that's going to be it for us today. There was obviously a little bit more of 9.2 news. Again, if you want, go check out Wowhead. There's a lot of stuff on the front page. You can just kind of scroll through all of their pages and wall. There's a lot of stuff pinned at the top as well. Something about a solo queue PvP brawl. Don't get baited. This is a brawl.
That's a PvP brawl.
Yeah. In the meantime, we are going to wish you a great day. What are you the most excited for in 9.2? I think that for me personally, I'm excited for the new raid. And I think that, like, how the raid is going to be structured with the new boss setup, I think that looks very enticing to me. What are you the most excited for?
I think the water that you can walk on has got to be it for me. That's that just defies the laws of physics for me. So I can't wait to see how they implement that. It seems really tough.
And so to all shaman players out there,
oh yeah,
druids are now superior,
and DKs getting power.
Druids are now superior. So you guys have just bad wolf form. I have stag form, but you had water walking for all that time, and now I have water walking too, dude, baby.
You lost the underwater place where you can aquatic form though, so a big nerf to druid.
All right, we're gonna see you guys later. Goodbye.
Yeah, we should end this like a minute ago. Bye.